Consistency guarantees success without needing luck. It is the #1 character trait that you can possibly have. So over the last 500 days, I made it my #1 goal to become consistent. I worked every single day on my online business for 500 days to achieve time and location freedom. I posted multiple YouTube videos every single week for over a year to reach exponential growth. I ran a marathon every single month for 12 months. And I spent 4 hours a day every single day consuming Spanish content for 7 months to become conversationally fluent. In this video, I'm going to break down the 5 actions I took to unlock this level of consistency so you can too. But before we jump into how I became consistent, the first question to ask is, why should you become consistent in the first place? I really think there's 3 reasons that make becoming consistent such a valuable trait, and in my opinion, the most valuable trait that you can possibly have. One of the biggest benefits you get from consistency is that it guarantees success. For basically every single thing that you do, the only way that you can fail is if you quit. If you're building a business, the only way that business fails is when you quit. If you're trying to get in shape, the only way that fails is if you quit and stop trying to get in shape. For all of these things, the only real way that you can fail is if you quit. And if you're being consistent, you're by definition not quitting. And this really just guarantees success. If you can zoom out on a long enough time horizon, you will eventually achieve your goals if you're taking the right actions, and consistency just guarantees that you will not fail. Another massive benefit that consistency provides, it removes luck. See, if you're a person that's not consistent and you're, for example, trying to grow a business, the only way that this business will succeed is if you get lucky. Because if you're not consistent, then you know that eventually you're going to stop taking actions. So the only way for this business to actually succeed is for you to make such an exponential growth in a small period of time that you don't give up and quit. But if you're a consistent person, then you could go through this period of time and make 0 progress monetarily, but because you have consistency, because you have patience, you can expand the time horizons, and eventually you're going to see that payout come. You've removed all of the luck because you know that I don't have to win quickly. Even if this takes me a few years, I'm still going to get there. This is exactly what happened for me. It took me a year. I didn't earn a single dollar for an entire year, but because I was consistent, because I was patient, I didn't give up, and eventually I started hitting exponential returns. While we're on the topic of exponential returns, another huge benefit you get from consistency is you unlock compounding benefits. Especially when we look at something like building a brand or building a business, you'll notice that you can take a lot of actions for a long period of time. You can be consistent, but you might not see huge returns. You might not see any material progress. But as you continue to be consistent and you continue to expand the time horizons, you'll see that you start getting returns, and these returns become exponential over time. Let's say, for example, you're trying to grow a YouTube channel and you post 3 videos every single week and you're consistent on this. You do this for an entire year. But at the end of that year, you only have 300 subscribers. You haven't been lucky. Nothing has absolutely blown up and exploded your YouTube channel. But guess what? You don't need luck. And you know that you're just going to keep being consistent and not quit. And this means that you're guaranteeing your success by not quitting. You don't need luck from this process. So you keep being consistent. And 3 months later, you end up with 4,000 subscribers. Pretty good outcome, right? You've now hit exponential returns from being consistent. Now, this isn't hypothetical. This is exactly what happened to me. If I did not have this trait of consistency, this YouTube channel would not exist. I literally posted 3 videos every single week for an entire year and had 300 subscribers. But because I knew I didn't need luck, because I knew I wasn't going to quit, and because I knew that eventually I was going to hit exponential returns, I kept with it, I stuck with it, and we're moving. We're progressing nicely. There were a few things that I did to unlock this trait of consistency that allowed me to progress quickly in a few different areas and unlock these exponential returns. And I want to break down these few actions that I took that really made a big difference, because I think there's a lot of people saying, do this for consistency, do that for consistency. There's a few things that I think that really worked more than anything else. And I want to break these down so you can utilize these and unlock this level of consistency. The first thing I did for every single goal that I went out to achieve is I created alignment. A lot of people go out and they have a general idea of what they want to do. I want to make money online. I want to build a brand. I want to get in shape. I want to do these, and these things, but they're not very clear or specific on exactly how they're going to do it. So the very first thing that I did was I got very clear and built this full alignment with what I wanted to do and how I wanted to get there. Now, there's really 2 things that I did to build full alignment. The very first thing that I did is I created a very clear North Star. For each of my goals, I had a very clear picture of exactly what I wanted to achieve. I got very specific and quantifiable. It is Boolean. And by Boolean, I mean it either happens or it doesn't. It's either yes or no. There's no maybe. It's very clear and very specific. After I had my North Star, the next thing I had to do is figure out, how do I get there? How do I get to this North Star? And the way you get there is by a set of actions. So the next thing I had to figure out is, what are my inputs? What are the small set of actions that I need to get to achieve this North Star. Now, because this North Star is very, very clear, these inputs are not super hard to find. Now, as always, I rely on the 80-20 principle here. What are the small set of actions I need to take that are going to move me very, very quickly towards this goal? But align is absolutely the first thing I had to do because it makes it very clear what you're being consistent on. Because you might say, okay, I want to be a consistent person, but what does that mean? What are you being consistent on? The consistency comes from consistently taking a set of actions. So the first thing you have to do is figure out where you're going and what set of actions you have to take. This is why it's the first thing that you do when you join the Modern Monk community is we get very, very clear on what is your North Star business goal and what are your inputs. Because if you don't have these things, you don't have the backbone and everything else is going to completely fall apart. The next thing I did was I built a physical environment that made it very, very easy for me to be consistent on these actions. So your environment is one of the biggest factors that's going to contribute to you taking the right actions towards your goal and creating a physical environment that's really good. It's a really set and forget activity. You do it once and then after that, it's going to have a big impact on the actions that you take. So for example, if you're trying to get in good shape, but you have a bunch of cookies in the pantry, you have a bunch of chocolate in the fridge, then it's very, very hard for you to stay in shape because your physical environment is telling you you should eat cookies or you should eat chocolate. But if there was nothing in your house but a bunch of healthy anabolic meals, it's very, very easy for you to stay in shape. So this was all about building a physical environment that made it very, very easy for me to take actions towards my goals, specifically take these 80-20 actions, these inputs, and very, very hard for me to do everything else. So I tried to build the perfect physical environment for every single area and every single goal that I was trying to hit. For example, if you're trying to grow a business and you are using a laptop to grow your business, like everyone is, then it's probably a good idea to make sure that on your laptop, in this physical environment, maybe you could call this a digital environment, but either way, what you're currently looking at, making it very, very hard for you to want to go off and do some fake productivity research task or go off and just consume a bunch of online entertainment. For every single one of my goals, I wanted to figure out how could I make my physical environment in such a way that it becomes really, really easy to move towards these goals. Now, this is something that you'll set up once and it's pretty set and forget, but what I like to do is I like to be constantly trying to improve and evolve this over time. You should be going through these feedback cycles where each day you go, okay, I took a decent amount of action towards this goal. This is where I kind of fell off slightly. Okay, maybe I could improve my environment in this way to make it more likely that I take these actions. This means that over time, your environment is developing and getting better and better and better and better. The third big action that I took that allowed me to become more consistent was I created a really strong social environment. So within your environment, I really think that your social environment, who you surround yourself with, probably has the biggest impact over your behaviors that you possibly can have. And realistically, how are we becoming consistent? Well, we're taking the right behaviors. What has a big influence over our behaviors? Well, our social environment. So for me, surrounding myself with people who did the actions that I wanted to do and it was a normal thing for them was a really, really good thing for me. For example, I want to run a marathon a month. This was really easy for me because my friend Toby, at the time I went, okay, I want to run a marathon a month, he'd already run 7 marathons in 7 months. This was a normal thing for him to do. Surrounded by any other people, this would be a really strange thing to do. It probably seems a bit dangerous or a bit unwise to do, but because I'm around people that do things that I want to do, it becomes a lot easier and a lot more normal to do these behaviors. In the very same way that if you surround yourself with a bunch of people who like to drink a lot, they'd like to play a bunch of video games, then all that's going to happen is that you're more likely to do those behaviors. Surrounding yourself with the people that do the actions that sit in these 80-20 inputs to get you towards your goals, it is a very, very powerful thing to do. The fourth thing I did here was I made it enjoyable to do the inputs, to do the actions required to get me to my goals. Because enjoyment is really about friction. If you don't enjoy doing the actions, doing the tasks required to get you to your goals, this is more friction. If you look at a task and you go, I don't want to do it, you're much less likely to do it. And if we zoom out over a long time horizon, this means that you do the task less. But if you really enjoy doing that task, if you want to go out and do it, it's much, much easier for you to do it. Enjoyment is really about comparisons, not absolutes. So it's not about how absolutely enjoyable something is. It's more about, well, compared to what I've been doing or what I usually do, this feels quite enjoyable. For example, if you hadn't eaten food for 7 days and I give you a plate of Brussels sprouts, you are going to devour that. You're going to inhale it and you're going to love it and it's going to taste amazing because you haven't eaten for so long. But if I'd just given you a kilo of steak and you'd eaten it up and I then go, okay, here's a plate of Brussels sprouts, you're probably going to go, no way I'm eating that. And by the small chance that you do eat it, you're not going to enjoy it. And it's not because the Brussels sprouts were any different. It's because of what went around it. And so when I think about trying to enjoy the actions that move me towards my goals, I think about how can I remove all of these things from my life that are providing me a bunch of dopamine, a bunch of good feelings for doing basically nothing, putting in zero effort and not progressing me towards my goals. Now, these three things I really put into the bucket of online entertainment. For me, I've removed online entertainment from my life for 500 days. I have to say, removing online entertainment just makes everything so much more enjoyable. If you sit down to work on your business, but 2 hours prior, you've just been scrolling Reels or TikTok, the work is gonna suck, right? If you had just spent the last 2 hours binge watching YouTube videos, the work is not going to be enjoyable. Simply by removing this online entertainment, it made everything so much more enjoyable. The work I did, working out, consuming Spanish content. I mean, this is one of the big reasons why I was able to spend 4 hours a day, every single day for 7 months consuming Spanish content. That's because I literally just used it as a replacement for online entertainment. This became the enjoyable thing that was really easy. Comparison's not absolute, and simply by removing the cheap things that feel really good, that are easy to do, that don't progress you forward, makes everything else a whole lot more enjoyable. And if it's more enjoyable, you're more likely to do it. Long time horizon, you do it more, you become more consistent. The final thing I did to become more consistent is I eliminated decision fatigue. Now, decision fatigue is really a variation of friction. If you have to be making a lot of decisions in the moment, you're gonna make worse decisions. And that's simply because our brain finds it a whole lot harder to delay gratification in the moment than if we do it ahead of time. For example, if you wanted to run a marathon, that was your goal, was to run a marathon, then you know the inputs to do that is you need to run more. Now, let's say I said to you, okay, tomorrow we're going to go for a run. You're far more likely to say yes to tomorrow we're going to go for a run than if I knocked on the door and I said, all right, come on, go grab your shoes, we're going to go for a run. And that's simply because it's so much harder for us to delay gratification and make objective decisions in the moment, because our brain is thinking so much more, how do I feel good right now? How do I feel good in the moment? And simply by taking these decisions out of the moment, we remove this decision fatigue and we make better decisions. I want to make the least amount of decisions possible during the day, because if I make the least possible decisions, then I make the least emotional decisions. I make the most accurate decisions for moving me towards these goals. This is simply just going to increase my consistency. And this was another big thing I found for improving my consistency. For the online entrepreneurs watching this video, if you want to unlock this trait of consistency to reach exponential returns in your business and guarantee your success, spending less time at the desk, then you can join the Modern Monk community for free. As I mentioned, the first thing we do is figure out what is your North Star, and then we figure out what are your inputs, because once you know this, you have the backbone. It's much easier for you to unlock this consistency. For everyone else, if you want to see exactly how I achieved time and location freedom in just 500 days and how I would do it a lot quicker if I was having to do it all over again, you can check out this video right here. So I'll either see you in the Modern Monk community or in that video. Cheers.